Hey, folks. Welcome to the Law of Self Defense. I am, of course, attorney Andrew Branca for the Law of Self Defense with an unusual show for today. And that is, of course, because of the news yesterday about my friend Nick Rekieta, apparently having been arrested in the morning on a drug charge and a predicated gun charge as well. And I feel obliged to do a very quick, clean, concise show on this, if only so I have a place to direct people, because the incoming inquiries are like a tsunami. And I'm just going to do this. We'll be here for 5 or 10 minutes. We'll wrap up. And then for all of time forthcoming, I'll just direct people here if they want to ask about the events of this week. There's no sponsor. There's no super chat. There's no monetization. It's just us today. So there's no legal analysis either. I'm not going to look at the statutes under which Nick was charged, or possible legal defenses or evidence or any of that. There are plenty of other law tubers out there covering that kind of stuff at that kind of detail, and I'll defer to them. These things don't fall within my area of expertise anyway. So just a quick one-off here. First, I want to say that nothing I'm about to say in this show should be taken in any way as excusing Nick for his poor decisions here. He violated his obligations to himself. He violated his obligations, more importantly, to his kids. And nobody can own that but Nick. And he must own it. He must own that if he hopes to achieve any kind of redemption here. And in my experience, redemption in these kinds of situations is generally unlikely. In my experience, for the typical person who finds himself in this kind of situation, the odds of redemption, the odds of digging themselves out of this kind of hole are maybe 1 in 10 if they do everything right. Maybe 1 in 10. That said, Nick's not a typical person. Nick's an exceptionally smart, talented, hardworking guy. And that makes his odds at recovering from this, hopefully a serious but hopefully transient hiccup, much better than for the typical case. Tremendously better. If Nick wants it bad enough. Now, personally, Nick's always been nothing but a great friend to me. And I guess it's an artifact of our modern times. Our relationship is, well, different than relationships I would have had with men, with peers 30 years ago. Most of our interaction is online. We've met in person several times, and those have been great experiences. But most of the time we spend together has actually been online. But that's not to say it's transient. I mean, because my business model is not the internet, I don't really care about growing my YouTube channel. That's just not what I do. And for me, my YouTube channel is just a marketing channel for our legal services, for our educational products, that kind of stuff. So when there's a high profile trial to be covered, I'm more than happy to just be a guest on Nick's show. I think that's harder for other law troopers to do because they have their own channels that they're trying to grow. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's perfectly appropriate. But it's put me in the rather unique situation where when we cover these trials, I'm often literally with Nick 10, 12 hours a day for weeks at a time for multiple trials. And we've almost certainly spent many hundreds, maybe 1,000 hours together, days at a time, engaged in intellectual exchanges, legal analysis, debate. And I have nothing but the highest respect for Nick's and intellect and his entertainment ability. He's an incredibly entertaining guy. And of course, life is hard. We all face challenges. Many of us fight demons all the time. And hopefully, most of the time we win. And sometimes the demons are winning. And I would just say that in those times when the demons are winning, that's not all a person is. Nobody is the person they are on their best day, and nobody is the person they are on their worst day. Again, this does not excuse Nick from his bad decisions. He has to own those. But Nick is not one bad period in his life if he does not wish to be that. And I should say, not only do I have tremendous respect for Nick's abilities and his intellect, but whenever I've needed help with something, Nick's always been there for me personally. Now, I've watched little bits and streams of other law troopers commenting on this, and I know some of them have had, they would say, a different experience, that they felt let down by Nick in one instance or another. I don't have anything to say about that. Everyone has to speak to their relationship with Nick from their own perspective. I've personally not had that happen. Now, the current situation, of course, is bad. Indeed, it's very bad. And again, it's likely a consequence of Nick's choices. You know, this is not, I think we have to admit, this is not Nick suddenly developed a brain tumor, something that just happened to him. He wasn't struck by lightning. His decision making, his human frailties, like we all possess, contributed to where Nick is today. But if anybody has a shot at redemption here, it's someone like Nick. And I hope and pray, and my entire family hopes and prays. We prayed as a family last night that Nick takes advantage of his rather exceptional opportunity because of who he is at redemption here. This is not going to be easy. This could be a year or two. Frankly, I think the best case scenario is this is a year or two process. But it could be a year or two blip in an otherwise pretty stellar life and career. Or it could be something much worse than that. I hope it's not the much worse. And if there's anything I can do for Nick, consistent, of course, with my own obligations to my family and my work, to help Nick in any way, I'm only a phone call away, and Nick knows that. But the truth is that the most any of us can do, however well-intentioned we are and however willing to help, is to augment Nick's own efforts. Nobody can save Nick, but Nick. Maybe we can help. And if I can, I'm happy to do that. And I know there's other people who are approaching Nick with love here. Of course, Nick, being who he is, controversial, likes to fight. He's got plenty of haters, so they're out there too, but I don't care about those people. Haters gonna hate, right? I'm speaking to the people who are willing to approach Nick's circumstances and Nick himself from a position of love. Nick has to do the heavy lifting, and it will be heavy lifting. And we might like to think that a shocking event like this might be kind of a single inflection point that abruptly turns things around, that ends the descent. And that could be the case. In my experience, that's not usually the case. The truth is, as bad as this is not as bad as things can be. Things can get a lot worse than this. Hopefully we don't need to go there. But even if we don't need to go there, turning these kinds of situations around, it's not like turning a sports car. It's like turning a cargo ship. It's a slow, painstaking, intensive, energy-consuming, wearing, exhausting, sometimes appearing hopeless process. It's hard. It's hard to climb out of this kind of hole. That said, again, Nick, I think, is uniquely equipped to dig himself out of this hole. And he has an obligation to do that for himself and even more so for his kids. His kids didn't have any choices here. So he's got an obligation to take advantage of his opportunity at redemption to dig himself out of this and go on to great things in the future, despite this hiccup. If he wants to bad enough, talking to you, Nick, you have to want it bad enough. That's the bottom line. And that's really all I have to say, folks. So there's no questions. I'm not even going to look at the comments. It's I'm going to take the rest of the day off. I'm going to go ride my motorcycle for a few hours, clear my head. Tomorrow we'll be back on the show I was going to do today for law self-defense. I'll do tomorrow morning. But I wanted to get this done succinctly, so Nick knows where I stand, and everybody knows where I stand, and hopefully we all pray for Nick, and Nick recovers from this. He can. There's no question in my mind. Nick can. And he can come back stronger than he ever was. You have to want to, buddy. And you have to be willing to accept the help, however limited it is, that we can offer. All right, folks. So I don't have a real outro. Keep in mind, life is short. Life is hard. If times are good for you right now, make the most of them, man, because hard times come to all of us. If times are hard for you right now, good times come too, if you hang in there. All right, folks, nothing else to say. Nick, I love you, man. You know where to find me. Everybody else, until next time, I remain attorney Andrew Branker for the Law of Self-Defense. Stay safe.